Hey everyone, this is Bob Stillerman, and I want to welcome you to Sardis Baptist Church for the fourth in a five-part series entitled Capturing the Image of Table. During this Lenten season, we are meeting virtually each Wednesday at noon to talk about what the communion table means for our congregation at Sardis and for our larger communities. We know that many of you are busy, and if you're unable to join us today, we hope you'll watch this video. It's posted on Facebook and YouTube, and that you'll use the comments to continue our conversation virtually and organically throughout the week. One of the reasons we're having this conversation is that we conclude our Lenten season on Monday, Thursday, where we share communion with one another, and we remember that very first communion that Jesus shared with the disciples. It's our hope that these discussions will offer new perspectives and fresh ways to engage the table, and that perhaps those new perspectives and learnings and insight will help us as we navigate Good Friday and the weekend and ultimately Resurrection Sunday. So we want to thank you for being part of this discussion, and we'll jump in. Over the first 3 weeks, we've tackled 3 different topics about table. During the first session, we talked about table verbs. And so we considered what are the things that happen in the course and in the life of table from day to day. So there are things we do to prepare, there are things we do to experience the table, and then there are things we do to reset and refuel so that we can have the table again in future points. In the second week, we talked more about the kinds of tables that we experience. Some of those tables are formal or informal. Others may be planned or spontaneous. Some may be smaller or bigger. Some may be very intimate. And some may struggle to be accessible. And so we want to think about how tables evolve and what our role is as host and guest. And then during the third week, we talked about table elements. That is, what do we receive at table? And so we talked about the very basic things. We talked about the nourishment and the rest and the community we find at table. But we also talked about less tangible things, do-overs and leftovers and grace and a sense of belonging. So that's what we sort of talked about those first 3 weeks. And today, we're going to talk a little bit more about what the table actually inspires in us. So having experienced the table, sort of how do we go out into the world with that table? So what I will suggest to you is the idea of table as muse. What does the table inspire for us? Each week when we share the table at Sardis, the question we pose or the challenge we offer is to imagine that the communion table has wheels on it. And so how will you take the values and the feelings and the experiences and the representative hospitality and grace of God out into the communities and tables that you partake in your own communities? So I came up with kind of 4 things that the table inspires or provokes in us or muses us to be. This is not an exhaustive list, but I think there are 4 pretty common things that can help us start a conversation. The first thing would be a desire to serve others. At the table, we discover the needs of others. We also discover our strengths and gifts. And the table reminds us that we can use our own talents to help transform the world. And so I think there is an energy and a collaboration and empathy that's generated at the table. And I think the table just puts us in a mindset to be neighbors to one another. So a desire to serve others would be the first thing. The next thing that comes to mind is the table helps us to prioritize healing over fixing. There's a lot of things in this world that we can't fix, at least not as soon as we'd like to. However, we can always be present. The bread we bake and share today will not eliminate grief in an instant, nor hasten the mending of broken bones by week's end. Nor will the bread we bake today untangle centuries of complex systemic issues by the next news cycle. But bereavement meals and care deliveries and helping others in need are tangible ways to tell people they matter. Such love, when married with consistency and authenticity, manifests strength and healing for the broken. And so I think when the table prioritizes healing over fixing, it tells us that our presence among one another in difficult situations matters greatly and has transformative effects. The third thing I think the table does is to provoke justice. We often talk about kingdom moments where the world just sort of seems to reflect God's potential and goodness for it. I think the table is a tangible representation. It offers a glimpse of what God's world can be. Our humanity becomes our least common denominator. However, there is nothing little about it. Again, all of us need nourishment at the table. All of us need a sense of community. All of us need a chance to rest. All of us need a chance to sit and do these things in a collaboration. And so the table shows that commonality among us. And finally, I would say that the table offers us a place to belong. It offers a safe space for every person to be themselves, to express their creativity, and to share their God-given and wonderfully made gifts with others. Again, I think that is that's really important. When we are able to be comfortable in a space where we feel like we're valued, it really brings us out and it really allows us to know one another better. So again, these are 4 things that I believe the table offers and inspires for us. Those are a desire to serve others, the prioritization of healing over fixing, the table provokes justice, and the table offers a place to belong. So keeping those 4 things in mind, I have a couple of questions for us to reflect on in the week ahead. So those were my 4 things, but I would ask you the question, what does the table inspire for you? Does it go beyond these 4 things? Are there other things that come to mind? I also want you to give thought to the table gatherings that you experience at home or work or school or other extended communities. And I want you to consider how the things that happen at those tables are similar or dissimilar to what happens at the table at Sardis. And then the final question I would ask of you is, how valuable are tables? I ask this in the sense of, do we feel like the work of justice, the work of community, the work of belonging is made possible at tables? Is table a tangible representation of being and doing God's work in the world? So those are our questions for the week ahead. I hope that the tables that you experience will be inspiring, will be formative, and will offer fresh and new perspectives as we make ready for the table on Monday, Thursday. Thanks so much for participating and hope you have an awesome week.